Bobby Stein, y'all. I came across this 39th anniversary edition of the Greenville Times at my house. This is the second edition, which was published in 1970. You see us thanking Dr. Montgomery and Roger Christian for their support of the public library downtown. Printed by the Office Supply Company, which was on Washington Avenue in Theobald. And in it, I came across this, a paper given by my Uncle Jake Stein called The Stein Family and Stein Mart. It was given to the Washington County Historical Society, March 27th, 1983. So I went ahead and I took pictures of just about all the pages in this anniversary edition. And I thought I would read this talk that my Uncle Jake gave back in 1983. It really covers my family history, the Stein family in Greenville. Also, it's got some history, old history of Greenville, and it's got the early history of the Stein Marts, I think through maybe store number 7. So Stein Mart had, when they closed all the stores, they had close to 300 stores. So this would have been really early. Well, probably about 1983. So this is called The Stein Family and Stein Mart by Jake Stein, Washington County Historical Society, March 27th, 1983. When I was asked to give this program, my first inclination was to refuse on the grounds that I'm definitely not a public speaker. When you are young, you love to look to the future and think what is going to happen in 10 to 20 years. But as you are starting to age, you love to dig up the past. In giving the history of the Stein family and the Stein Mart, it is necessary to go back quite a few years. If you talk about the Stein family, you have to talk about the Stein Mart. If you talk about the Stein Mart, you have to give a history of the Stein family. In giving a history of the Stein Mart, you must go back to its originator and founder, Sam Stein. That is the beginning of the Stein Mart. As I give dates and approximate years, I might have mixed up a few because we did not keep any family history. We did not write in the family Bible what happened in a particular year. Everything that I tell you is to the best of my memory. If I miss a date a year or two, please forgive me. It is not intentional. In 1900, Sam Stein, my father, was living in Russia. He was living under the tyranny of Tsar Nicholas II. Tsar Nicholas had pogroms against the people of the Jewish faith. Jews were not tolerated. They were put in certain sections and could not go here and could not go there. My father decided at the age of 14 or 15, he did not want to exist under those conditions. He did not want his family to live under tyranny. He persuaded them when he was 15 years old that he would like to come to the land of milk and honey, as America was known to all Western Europeans. He told his mother and father that he was going. He promised his brothers and sisters that as soon as he was financially able, he would bring them over to this country. So he went into a port in Germany where he caught a boat. How he financed it, I do not know. I do know that he rode in steerage in this boat for the 2 weeks trip across the Atlantic. Landing in New York, he looked up a cousin who was in the coat manufacturing business. The cousin gave him a job as a messenger and courier in this particular business. My father was not satisfied with this job. He was paid a very meager sum of money in salary. He often told me that his savings were not from his salary because it took all the money he made to live on. His savings came when he was given a package or letter or anything to carry. He was also given the dime to ride the subway. He would walk and put the dime in his pocket and save it. This was his savings. Father was not satisfied in New York because he could not look back and make good on the promises to his brothers and sisters to bring them over to this country on that type of income. He decided to leave New York and go west. He had heard of Memphis, Tennessee. He left New York and arrived in Memphis in 1901. In Memphis, he acquired a pack on his back, which consisted of jewelry. It was not diamonds and rubies. It was costume jewelry. He worked around Memphis for a while and acquired a jewelry route. He then caught a packet boat down the Mississippi River, stopping at the different places, deciding where to land and looking for a place that would impress him enough to stay. When he landed in Greenville, he knew this was the spot. He got off with his pack. He started peddling in Greenville and then established a route from Greenville to Vicksburg. How he bought a horse and buggy, I do not know. I never questioned the fact, but I do know he rode by horse and buggy from Greenville to Vicksburg, selling jewelry along the roadside in the little small communities. In 1902, on one of his trips to Vicksburg, he was shot and wounded and taken to the hospital in Vicksburg, where he recovered after several months. He returned to Greenville, got another pack, and started his business on the corner of Washington and Walnut, in front of what was known as Finley's Drugstore, where he sold costume jewelry. In 1903, a local jobber saw how energetic Sam Stein was and asked him why he did not go into business at a permanent location rather than selling off the street. There was an empty building in the 100 block of South Walnut Street. His friend, jobber and supplier, was J. Romansky. J. Romansky said he would finance him to a stock of goods if he would go into business there. Father agreed. He then opened his first store on Walnut Street. In 1909, Sam Stein married my mother, Fanny Aronzone. She lived in Greenwood and he lived in Greenville. Her family and his family lived in the same town in Russia. Somehow or other, they made a connection in America. He visited Greenwood and proposed, and they were married. In 1911, I was born. Last week, I was 72. I was born in Greenwood due to the fact that in 1911, Greenville was flooded in March. The whole town was covered. The doctors advised my mother to go to Greenwood to give birth to her child, and she did. I was born there, and after several weeks, she returned home. As you know, in the next few years, there were 3 other children born to Sam and Fanny Stein. Joe Stein, my brother, Sadie Stein, who is now Sadie Sherman, and Bernie Stein. Y'all, Bernie Stein was my father. He was the youngest of the Stein family. In 1919, after World War I, there was a financial crisis in the mercantile business because of a price crash. My father went to St. Louis to buy a stock of merchandise in May or June, and those goods were not worth 30 cents on the dollar when it was time to sell them in October. I will give you an example. You may remember Hope Domestic. Hope Domestic was a household fabric that was used in every family. They used to make sheets, pillowcases, clothing, and 1,000 other uses of Hope Domestic. He paid 90 cents a yard for it in March to be sold in the fall. By the time it was sold, it was retailing for 25 cents. This crash knocked a financial crisis in Sam Stein's business. A lot of firms went broke as a result of the panic of 1919. Thanks to the Citizens Bank of Greenville and its chief operating officer, Frank Robertshaw, the father of James Robertshaw, my father did not have to go bankrupt. Mr. Robertshaw told him to make out checks to everybody he owed. The bank would pay the checks and he could pay the bank when he could. So my father stayed open and paid off, and the Stein business continued through that crisis. In 1924, Sam Stein moved off of Walnut Street to our first location on Washington Avenue. We were coming uptown then. 2 doors from the Finley corner on Washington Avenue, there was an empty store which Father purchased. He became well known in the community because of his shoes and fabrics. Sam Steins did well until 1927. On April 21st, 1927, Greenville had the Great Flood. We had 3 feet of water in the Sam Stein store. My father, myself, and Joe, who was younger than I, stood there day and night trying to raise everything we could up to the 5-foot level. When we finished this, Joe, my sister Sadie, Bernie, and my mother took the last C&G train out and went to Greenwood to stay with her folks. I stayed here with my father. We couldn't do business at that time. Father was given the job of delivering the mail from the Kate Adams, which was a steamboat from Memphis to Vicksburg. He would pick up the mail and take it to the post office. I worked in the soup kitchen, which was at the foot of Washington Avenue. There were over 5,000 pup tits on the levee for people at that time, and we had to feed them out of this soup kitchen. The flood was a setback to the business, naturally, but when the waters receded, we reopened the store. In 1928, Sam Stein went back to his homeland to visit his mother and father. After World War I, Poland had been reestablished as a separate country. The area of Russia where my father had been born had been carved out to become part of Poland. In the years after he started his own business, my father succeeded in bringing everyone in his family over to America, except his mother and father, who were then too aged to leave Europe. In 1929, we moved further up in Washington Avenue to a larger location, which had been occupied by the Geisy Mann Hardware Company. This was a very nice store in the same block. It gave us the opportunity to handle mere merchandise and to cater to a larger population. Greenville was growing fast and Sam Stein was keeping pace. In 1930, I graduated from high school and went to the University of Alabama, where I played football. I was injured in 1931 and returned home. My brother Joe, who had stayed home to assist my father in business, went to college and I stayed here. Joe went to college for only 1 year because in 1932 my father passed away from a massive heart attack as he came out of the Palace Barbershop on Washington Avenue. His death left the store to Joe and myself. I did not know what to do. I had worked at the store after school days in high school. I knew something about running the store,